Winning cures everything. Now for your hosts, Gary and Chris.
Welcome in. It's Wednesday, May the 6th. It's Winning Cures Everything. I'm Gary.
Chris.
And we are ready to rock and roll. We got a lot of football to discuss today. Good gracious, a ton of college football, a ton of NFL stuff going on. And we're going to talk some hypotheticals. We're going to have some fun with some of these topics. And I'm ready for it. So, before we do that, of course, we want to go ahead and tell everybody that jumps in every day, thank you. You guys run the chat. You guys help us along with some of these conversations. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate that. It is incredibly thoughtful that you guys would take the time out of your day. Matt jumps in already on YouTube. Michael jumps in on Twitch. And McKinnon jumps in already as well. That's the stalwarts, man. That's the dudes. They are here every single day. And we've got other guys that jump in as well. But we want you to know how much we appreciate you. We couldn't do it without you. Matt already jumping in on the Murder Hornets. I ain't talking about no damn Murder Hornets, man. I'm tired of these things. There's a news story today that said the whole thing's a fraud. Did you see that? That's there was this big New York Times article about how Murder Hornets are whatever, and now there's another article that says like the whole thing's made up and it's just whatever. So anyway, thank you guys for jumping in the chat. We really appreciate you. Everybody else, go to winningcureseverything.com. You can subscribe to all of our different platforms over there. The live show is on Facebook, Twitch, Periscope, and YouTube. And then, of course, you've got the podcast, and you can subscribe to that at any of your favorite podcast apps. Make sure you leave a nice review, and feel free to jump in and comment at any point. Leave nice reviews. Tell all your friends about it, all that kind of stuff. Michael said, and now you're talking about Murder Hornets. Yeah, I kind of did for a minute there. But it is what it is. The main thing is we just wanted to say thank you to everybody that's been hopping in here lately. You guys have been fantastic, and we can't thank you enough. So, Chris, are you ready to talk football?
Let's go.
Now, this is a little bit of a hypothetical, but, it's a look into the future. That's what we've been doing when there's no live sports. So let's discuss the Pac-12 and recruiting going forward. My question to you is, could the Pac-12, at least in college football, benefit from the current situation that we are in with the COVID-19 pandemic? The reason I ask this question, defensive tackle Corey Foreman, number one player in the upcoming recruiting class, decommitted from Clemson a couple of weeks ago. And, it's kind of a big deal because Clemson doesn't get a lot of decommits. But it's the first of many that we think we will see going forward, at least some of the recruiting gurus, the guys at 247 Sports, etc. It's the first of many that we're going to see in the past, just in the last 5 years or so. The Pac-12, USC, Oregon, etc., they have started losing kids to the East Coast, to SEC schools like Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, etc., the big boys. And they're getting, top 10, top 20 players out of California to go to school in the Southeast and just on the East, right? With this pandemic and the way that things may change going forward, people may not be as interested in leaving or going so far away from home that they couldn't get back, right? Ben jumps in. He tosses in dollar signs already. Another reason I bring this up, there's an ESPN article today about USC and how they plan to, quote, take back the West. I'm curious if the Pac-12, if the boosters have money, Oregon, USC, et cetera, if they've got money and they can get these kids to play there, then yeah, obviously money is a big thing. But does the pandemic change anything for you, Chris? Do you think going forward that we're going to see any changes?
All right. Going forward or this year? Those are two different things.
Well,
this year, the pandemic could affect this year.
Could it affect 2021?
I don't know that going forward, next year's recruiting class will have any effect on this thing if we get this thing licked and beat and we move on with normal life, by, Christmas or whenever it is.
So you don't think that it changes just the
long
way that
term,
life is
like
done?
5 years, we're going to look back and say the pandemic's the reason USC's back?
It's a question. That's why I'm bringing it up.
The answer to that is no. Can it affect this year? Yes.
Okay, so you think it's only...
I don't think coaches are going to be able to travel. I don't forget the coaches. I don't think the kids are going to be able to travel the way they normally travel to look at schools. I don't think mom and daddy are going to want them to travel that far to look for schools. And if they are all coming from that area, then that is fine. And I do think that more kids will stay home. So yes. Do I think in 2 years any kid's going to give a damn about this at all and stay home? Absolutely not.
You may have a point there. Which is why I brought this up. You know, there's the whole campaign of Take Back the West that USC has adopted here recently, and it does make me question.
If they want to take back the West, they got to break out the money, and we know that.
And
we know how this works.
That's what Ben said. Matt jumped in.
Ben's exactly right. You have NFL rosters and you have NFL paydays in the SEC, and that's just the way it is.
There's no salary cap in college football.
No, there is no salary cap, and it's all done under cover of darkness.
Yeah. On YouTube, Matt said, think that it could also be that these kids may lean toward a political side, and the West Coast is different than some of the schools in the South and Southeast. I don't know about all that. I mean, you're talking like 17-year-old kids.
I don't know about that. I think some of them might do that, but I think for the most part, look, while all of these are super Republican states that are really good at football, very few of these kids could care less about that. They're not Republicans, and they're not running away from them. The Dems are not scared of them.
No, you got that right.
Their God's there. Their worship there. So why would they be afraid of them?
You got it. Michael on Twitch said there will never be a lack of people wanting to leave California. That is 100% the truth. And then
I don't know. I think that's older people. I don't think that's younger people.
Yeah.
I don't think the kids have any problems with any of restrictions of California. That is a red tape thing that you deal with as an adult, but not as an 18, 19, 20-year-old child.
Or 17 years old when you're trying to make that decision.
17, you're not dealing with any of it at all.
McKinnon said, hell, I'm sure the parents are large proponents of kids staying closer to home in case emergencies happen like we are seeing today. Big reason why I chose Memphis over other shooting schools. I might have a dash of paranoia, but I always have a plan to get back to the Ozarks if some crazy shit happens. And I think this pandemic will make more people think along those lines. I do think there will be some people that it will affect. It's not going to be a ton.
I don't think 3 years from now anybody will be affected by it.
I do worry about this generation and how we are today. I don't feel like we learn from the past as well as we used to. Does that make sense? Like
I don't know what there is to learn from. What are you talking about?
Well, not necessarily anything specific. I'm just talking about we, as a society, we just dive into things without really. This is a very broad brush I'm painting. Maybe I don't need to. Well,
I need to know what you're talking about.
Well, I don't have.
When it comes to recruiting, if you're making an analogy from something else, then tell us about it. But
no.
Talking about recruiting, I just don't agree.
We're not just talking about the pandemic in general, right? We've had all these things happen before, and yet the office of the president, shut off all of the funding for our disease whatever stuff back in 2017, right? So that was one of the things that he initially cut funding for, and then we have this happen. Like, there were people that wrote articles about how if something were to happen like this pandemic, this is where we would be in trouble, and here's how it would happen. And I'll be damned if it didn't happen to a T. So,
yeah,
not learning from the past is, I don't know. I personally, like, my daughter's talking about going out to school in California or whatever. I would like that she stays closer to home because of stuff like this. But, in 2 years, 3 years,
I will tell you this. There is nowhere in the world that my child could be that I don't feel like I could get to them. Right now, in the midst of the pandemic, if my kid was in California, I could get to her. I just could. I just could. I'm not worried about not being able to get them home. I could make that happen.
Yeah, no, you're right.
As long as they are not held hostage and I'm not physically able to get to them because a litany of army is in front of me and I'm just one person, then no, there's nowhere they can be if I know where they are that I don't think I can get to them and get them home.
That's you may have a valid point.
Like,
so long as they're not overseas.
Like they're stuck in a third world country here, okay?
No, you're right.
We've got plenty of gas. Our country's not running low on fuel, all right? Hop in the damn car, drive 4 days to California like they used to do a long time ago, grab her ass, throw her in the car, drive 4 days back.
Yeah.
This isn't hard. We're just used to hopping on a plane to being there in 8 hours.
That's it. Matt's jumping in here with these conspiracy theories and whatnot. I swear to God. Tim Crosby jumps in on Facebook, said, love the show, fellas. Keep it up. We appreciate that, obviously.
But no, when it gets back to recruiting, I think, yes, this year recruiting is going to be drastically different than it used to be. I absolutely believe that. The other schools I think could benefit from that are some of the smaller schools in the SEC. Mississippi produces a metric shit ton of Division I football players that usually goes to Alabama, LSU, Florida, Georgia, Texas A&M. People come into Mississippi and they steal kids every year.
100%.
Right? So think about those schools and how it might benefit them. Think about the University of Memphis. How many schools come into Memphis across the country and take kids? And now do they stay home or do they not? Yeah. So this isn't just USC, we're taking back the West. This is going to affect every hotbed. In basketball, be very, very careful of the next couple of years of the D.C. area, because the D.C. area has been getting pilfered by Memphis, Kansas, Kentucky, and UNC, Duke all day long. If those kids stay home and they go to Georgetown and they go to Maryland, it's going to get crazy. Yeah. All right. You're going to see teams that you haven't seen in a long time be good. Okay?
I mean, we saw it this year. I mean, you had Dayton, San Diego State. Like,
and all
it was
it takes
crazy.
In basketball, especially, is one kid to be elite and say, I don't care about the big school. I'm going to stay home.
Yeah, you're right about that.
That's all it takes is a world-class athlete, especially in basketball, where you only have 5 players on a court at one time.
Yeah. Now you're
one
you're
guy
right.
can totally change that. So, yeah, I think we could absolutely see this affect this year. There's a chance, depending on what high school football looks like next year, do it. Because here's the other thing. It's not just parents wanting kids to stay closer and all of that and kids wanting to make mama happy. It's relationships with high school coaches. And right now, you can be in Clemson, LSU, Alabama, Ohio State and have good relationships with high school coaches in California, but you're not seeing them a lot right now. And you're not going to see them in a lot for a while.
At least not in person.
All those local colleges are, and that can help push kids where they need them to get.
No, you got that right.
So, yeah, I do. But the concept of being 18 years old and going away to college and running away from your family for a couple of years and going crazy, that's not changing, man. That's not going anywhere. Kids in Alabama want to get the hell out of Alabama. Kids in California want to get the hell out of California. Yeah. They just want to see the world. Everybody's lived in these bubbles as high school students and under, and now they have this opportunity to go somewhere else. That's not going away. No, 3 years from now, when we can travel freely, those kids are going to pack up their shit and they're going to leave, just like they always have.
Yeah, Matt jumped in on YouTube, said, I made that drive to Cali and back from Memphis. Yeah, that's a long drive. Matt said some of these kids are dumb. Didn't one pick Clemson because there was a Chick-fil-A on campus, and then he went and did the research while we were talking. Said it was Casanova McKenzie that picked Auburn over Clemson because there was a Chick-fil-A on campus. And then Michael jumped in. Well, McKinnon, talking about your drive 4 days out there and then drive 4 days back. McKinnon said, hell, Chris, give me a call. We'll be an army of 2. My hillbilly house will make it worthwhile. And then Michael said, California does have Skid Row. It's pretty close to a third world country. So, yeah, I'm with you. I see where you're coming from on that. My thought process was more with the parents, but you're right. Like, leaving it up to the kids more so. I think kids are making more of their decisions nowadays than the parents are. And you're right. You're right. It may not change a whole lot.
In the South are different. Those young poor black kids that are getting recruited in the South that are top tier elite no, they go where mama tells them to go. I'm speaking a little out of pocket here. I don't know that those kids in California are being raised the same way. Okay, I know in Louisiana you go where mama tells you to go. Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama. I know you go where mama tells you to go. They don't even talk to daddy. Nobody recruits daddy anymore in the South. You go where mama tells you to go.
Yeah. The only one that was different was Landon Collins.
Cultures are the same out west.
Yeah.
So
No,
I don't know that that's, you know, that's being listened to. I do think those kids, because they grew up in bigger cities, they're able to do far more than we could ever do growing up in a small town, that they are more independent. They are more free thinking. They are do more for themselves than we were ever allowed to do. And therefore they're going to depend on their own decision-making more than we do.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You are 100%
That's my logic.
Right.
I don't know. It could be all wrong.
No, I see where you're coming from. Like, I think I agree with you. Michael jumped out and said there is a completely different culture out here, Chris. Yeah, and I'm with you. I don't think people are going to remember this time so much in like a year or so. Like, when we get done, you give it a year after everything goes back to normal, and people will forget what happened and how scary it was at first. So that's where my thought process is, okay, well, in 3 or 4 years, like, the parents will remember, hey, like, when everything happened, you know, everybody had to leave school.
Those parents aren't going to be thinking that stuff.
But I think you're right. I think society's a lot different now. I don't, you know, Ben said Chris is right. Yeah, I mean, I can understand it. I can understand it. So I get where you're coming from, and that's why I bring these questions up. I want your perspective on it. You and I think differently a lot of times, but you know, we can debate it, and then we can try and win each other over. You won me over with this one. I see where you're coming from.
Appreciate it. I'm glad.
Let's jump into the next topic here and write down my time here. The NFL schedule will be released at 7 p.m. God's time on Thursday, May the 7th. The first 4 weeks, per John Clayton, he was on 93.7 in Pittsburgh earlier today. The first 4 weeks will be all NFC versus AFC games. And what that means, basically, and they haven't done this before from what I understand, the first 4 weeks, Pittsburgh, this year it is their rotation to play against the AFC East.
So the AFC North is playing the AFC East.
Sorry, NFC East. Excuse me. NFC.
Yeah, AFC North is playing the NFC East.
Right.
Yes.
So the Steelers' first 4 weeks this year will be against the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Redskins, and the Giants.
Yeah. Same will be for the Browns. Same will be for the Ravens. Same will be for the Bengals.
Right. So the reason that they are doing this, I'm going to assume, and you and I both, I think, agree on this. We talked a little bit off the air about this, is because the games don't really mean anything. Right?
They don't mean as much.
Right. They don't mean as much. They still mean something. Obviously, your final record is what it is. But it's not worth as much for ticket sales. It's not worth as much necessarily. Well, I mean, good gracious, you got the Steelers and the Cowboys. That's kind of a big deal. You're hoping that by September you have fans in the stands, right? So if you do have these I don't
think they care about any of that stuff. I think it's 100%
can we make the playoffs?
Field tiebreakers. I think to playoff seeding and tiebreakers are always going to be division first, conference second, and that's it. That's just how it's going to always work. And we're assuming we're not going to get much of a spring training. We're assuming that preseason
or
is
a fall camp, right?
Yeah, fall camp, very short. It's already just with pads enough anyway. So let's make sure the first 4 weeks, the damn sure not playing a divisional game, because those games basically equal 2 games.
Yeah.
On the record, and if we can push conference games back, let's push them back, and it's just the easiest way to do it. We already know what divisions are going to play one another in the crossover, so let's just make those the first 4 games of the season, and then we can move forward with everything else.
Now, Michael jumped in on Twitch.
I think that's smart, by the way.
Yeah, and Michael jumped in on Twitch. He said, thank goodness I hate the Raiders-Denver season openers. He said Brady coming to Denver will be a big-ticket game. Yep. And then Tim Crosby jumps in on Facebook and said, we'll be in Vegas, Vegas Raiders against the Bucks no matter what or when. Well, I mean, a lot of that depends on whether or not they open it up to fans, right? So, yeah, you're going to get some really massive games that, you know, if they don't open it up for fans, you know, there's still so much that has to be figured out right now. Good gracious. I can't wait to see what the schedule looks like. But
the NFL doesn't care about fans. They care about that television rating. So when the Cowboys and Steelers play It's just going to do a monster number. It's going to be the late afternoon game, I can assure you, and they're only going to have one or two other games going on, and they're going to see to it those are two shitty games.
Yeah, no, you're probably right.
They do it every year. The Cowboys match up like last year. They did the same thing with the Cowboys and the Packers. Yeah. They just an opportunity to have a monster number. Let's just have a monster number, and it was them and one other game in that late game series.
Oh yeah, and I'll tell you this fall, if the NFL is playing on time, it is going to be absurd. Like, the ratings are going to be astronomical. Yes. Matt said, I miss going to games and drinking $12 beer. Yeah, $12 beer always tastes a little bit better than a $5 beer, you know. So Tim said, what about what do you think about the first 15,000 in the stand? Oh, no, the Fins 15,000 in the stand. So this was an interesting concept, and we'll toss this into this before I get to my other question about the schedule. Miami brought up an idea of possibly, maybe allowing only 15,000 people in at a time, and you would reserve your time to enter the stadium. And if you're wanting concessions, you place an order like through an app or whatever, and then you are allotted a time to go pick it up. And
they need to move concessions to an app anyway. They just need to hire a lot more people to bring you, and basically it'd be waiter service. That's the way all concessions need to go. By every game I've ever gone to, I don't like leaving the game. I don't like leaving my seat ever. I'm like a camel. I never have to pee.
I agree.
And I just want to hunker in and never move. And the fact that I have to leave and then time it right, and so I either wait in line forever or I miss a big part of the game to go grab something because the line's shorter. We live in a world where there's no reason for me not to pull my phone out, pull an app out, buy my food, and 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes later, somebody shows up with it. There's no reason we don't live in that world right now.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Now, they're not talking about doing that. They're talking about ordering your food and then
you go pick it up.
Them telling you when it's ready, and then you go pick it up so nobody else is around. Why not just have somebody bring it to you? Come on. Let's bypass this whole let me miss the game and run up there. You know, that's just insane to me. And I've just created jobs.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. You just created some jobs. And it's not like, these are minimum wage kind of jobs. But dude, when I was a kid, if you were 17 years old right now in Hollow Branch High School, and you could have gone to the FedEx Forum to deliver food to folks in the middle of, for a basketball season, wouldn't that have been the best job ever? Just wanted to say hi to McKinnon. That was my wife, for anybody that doesn't know.
But wouldn't that have been the best job ever?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I would have done it at Grizzlies games. I would have done it, wherever. So
anywhere I could. Yeah. Anywhere I could.
I think that's a fantastic way to go.
On Sundays, I'd have driven up to Nashville just to work for Sunday and driven back.
Michael said, first off, you have to pregame, can't buy those stadium beers. Then he said, do 15,000 people go watch the Fins anyway? It's about – McKinnon said, hey, Jess, there you go.
The problem you get to is because I'm actually okay with this. I like this idea of saying, hey, we hold 60,000 people, and how many folks are like, you've got to find a way to do it where it's nobody goes to a game by themselves. Okay.
Yeah. Of course.
So like if a family of 3 go to a game, then you don't have to stay 6 feet apart. You live together. You came together. It's okay.
Yeah. So
I think there's a way to get 25, 30,000 people in this places and be safe. I really do.
Oh, yeah. Tim Crosby, again, on Facebook said, valet food service. That's a great idea. I agree with you, Chris. I think that's a great idea. Matt said, I agree with Michael. I think they are really hopeful on that number of 15,000. And then Matt said, just take a sip of beer off the top. By the end of the night, you're too drunk to use power tools. Yeah, 100%. Let's jump off of that. Let's stay in the NFL for a second. Stay on the NFL schedule. I am curious about this. I'm curious your ideas on it. I think the league is going to put less primetime games in California and New York this year because obviously they schedule out, Thursday night, Monday night, and you always have, the teams in Cali and the teams in New York, like the Giants and the Jets, on Monday Night Football. You always do because it's a massive media market. I don't think they are going to have them on those nights because I don't think that they are going to be ready to allow fans, and I think that some other states are going to be able to allow fans. I think the Texans and the Cowboys, et cetera, by October, somewhere around there, I think they're going to be letting fans into the stands. I think it's going to change the schedule. Do you feel the same way?
I don't know. I think if we don't get a game in New York, it's strictly because both those teams are just trash and nobody wants to watch them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it hadn't mattered in the past.
You can still have a New York team playing on Monday Night Football to get all those eyeballs and have them playing in Dallas or in one of the other teams or whatever, one of the other places. So I also don't think this. I'm going to tell you, this is the truth, man, and you can disagree with me or not. If one team can't have fans because of their rules, no team's going to have fans. That's just it. They're not going to say you can go to Cowboy Stadium and they get a home field advantage, but when we have to play in MetLife Stadium, there is no fans. That's not going to happen. I assure you of that. It is just like the headset rule, man. If your headset goes down on one side, then both the other team has to take their headset off. And that is just the way we're going to get this, Gary. You can say the governors can do whatever the hell they want. That's fine. The NFL is ruled as an equal line across the board.
Well, the reason I'm curious about this is, that is, if you look at the revenue that is brought in through ticket sales, last year it was over $3.2 billion in ticket sales alone. I'm going to disagree with that number right there. That's got to be StubHub and stuff like that. That is not what these NFL teams make off of the ticket sales. No. For all 32 teams for the entire season,
I'd be shocked. That's insane.
Really?
I don't. Yeah.
Maybe it was a crazy number.
Also, think of the overhead for that $3.2 billion too, because now you've got concession workers, you've got all security, you've got all of these extra things that you're paying for that you won't have.
Right. So, So let me kind of wrap this into what I was thinking here. My thought process is you let the places that can have fans have the fans. You let them do it. And the other ones don't, but you split that ticket revenue.
They don't care about the revenue, Gary. It's about competitive balance.
You're telling me the NFL doesn't care about revenue?
No, I'm telling you that they don't care about ticket sale revenue.
I don't know, man.
The television money is so ridiculous. They don't give one hot damn about ticket sale revenue.
I mean, regardless of whether they sell a ticket or not, they're all in the black. It wouldn't matter. So, I mean, the TV.
They care about the television revenue, and the only way, and they're the smartest league out of all of them, the only way to keep that TV money up is you've got to have competitive balance. You cannot have a team that has a great home field advantage atmosphere, and then the other team has to play in an empty stadium for their home crowd. Now, if they can't draw fans, that's on them. But at least they have the opportunity to do both, okay?
That's a good point.
Just like you get to draft first if you're terrible. If you draft poorly, that's on you. We at least set this thing up to where you get to pick before the other guys get to pick. I'm going to tell you, if my headset goes out, they make you take your headset off. They care about competitive balance because they understand that's why they have the fandoms that they have. And that amount of money, see, you do this, you say, they don't care about revenue. They care about revenue. What revenue do they care more about? Television revenue or ticket revenue?
I mean, you got
because they don't give a shit about tickets. They don't give one damn about tickets.
That's it. Yeah. Okay. I'm seeing where you're coming from. I'm curious which direction they'll end up going on it because I mean, it is a lot of money. Like we can sit and talk about how it's not, but it's not substantial compared to television, but it is money. Let's go ahead and hit some of these comments right quick because it took off when we started talking about this. Ben said, don't they want to show off SoFi Stadium? Well, I mean, does it matter if there's no fans there? I mean, they want to show it off, but I mean, who knows? I don't even know if they're going to finish that thing. I mean, who knows? Michael Fritz said, I heard rumors that Newsom might shut down live sports until 2021. Matt said, do like Atlanta and just pump in crowd noise. That's... Well, we bashing on the Falcons. We got to talk about them in the draft here in a little bit. Michael said, a buddy of mine is a Rams season ticket holder. He said no updates from the Rams. Matt said, look at what Trolls 2 did to movie theaters. $100 million, and now movie companies are rethinking releasing. Even the Academy Awards are changing to allow non-theatrical releases. Yeah, I mean, it's all based on at-home entertainment, right? If we want to talk about movie theaters, you and I talked last week about the fact that AMC theaters are banning Universal Studios pictures.
Well, now it's not just AMC. It was another theater group as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's happening all over the place, but I don't think it's going to affect these movie studios because they are still going to make astronomical numbers. Like, I think they'll make more numbers.
Make a lot of money.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the league is not going to allow a team to have a home field advantage and then another team, basically in a divisional game situation. Let's the Cowboys and the Giants is perfect.
Yeah.
Washington. What if the Cowboys are the only one and Philly doesn't open up and Washington doesn't open up and the Giants don't open up? Do you think there's any way on earth the league is going to say, okay, it's fine for the Cowboys to play 3 divisional games and have a shitload of fans in there, but when they go on the road,
they don't have to play against any fans,
crowds at all? That is not going to happen. It's just not.
You have a very strong point here. I'm with you. I'm curious to see what they'll do. You may be right. I did not think of that aspect of it.
I'll be shocked if they allow that to happen. And I think a lot of owners are going to fight like hell because it's not the owner's fault. Listen, these owners are in these big cities because that's just where they bought a team. That's how it's worked out. But they don't have much control over what these governors are doing.
No,
all right?
Of course not.
They just don't.
No, you're right. McKinnon said, hey, now the dirty birds are dirty for a reason. Rise up. Yeah, I know how you Falcons fans are. Let's talk a little more college football right quick. This was a trending topic on Twitter, and it kind of got me interested in the idea of it. It was asking, this is Fox College Football, by the way. Their Twitter account always comes up with these great, poll kind of questions. And they released a graphic. It said, who is the best number 5 in college football history? Now, number 5, kind of an odd number. You don't see a bunch of guys that have that number. But if you go back through history, there are a lot of really good players that had that number. And I'll go ahead and read off all 8 to you, Chris. Now, I'm curious what your answer is. They had, from Syracuse, Donovan McNabb. From Stanford, Christian McCaffrey. From TCU, LaDainian Tomlinson. From West Virginia, they had Pat White. And now the next 4, they had Reggie Bush out of USC, Jameis Winston from Florida State, Manti Te'o out of Notre Dame, and then Edgerrin James out of Miami. I think the right answer is probably Reggie Bush. I mean, he was just he was a mutant.
Now, if you can take away the nutsack ability, Jameis Winston's really hard to argue. He didn't lose a college football game for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, he lost to – he got wiped out by Oregon, but he won, 27 games in a row, I think it was?
Okay.
That's a lot. But Reggie Bush kind of did the same thing.
Okay.
So,
I just disagree. Now, Reggie is obviously second. And I would
here's
consider
the Twitter.
Reggie the number 1 guy. But Reggie didn't. A running back is never going to be the reason you won all those games.
Agreed.
While he was unbelievable,
he's not the reason you won.
A quarterback has got to be more valuable than a running back. Reggie's the answer over the rest of those quarterbacks and receivers and running backs.
Michael on Twitch said Reggie Bush. Ben on YouTube said Bush, and then McKinnon said 100% Reggie Bush.
Because nobody wants to give Jameis credit for anything. And I don't either, okay? It's a really hard thing to hold your nose. But if you look at the stats, you look at the numbers, and you look at what he did, it's just unbelievable. It really is. It kind of pisses me off that he was that good and that big of an idiot.
I see where you're coming from with Jameis. I might go Pat White here.
No chance.
The reason I say Pat White, he had West Virginia a game from the national championship. And yes, the game against Pitt, absolutely, disaster, all that kind of stuff. But he was a part of what kind of the Jackson 81 said, hey, on Twitch. And then Tim Crosby said it was Tomlinson. He said Tomlinson over Bush, and then Jameis Winston, and then Edgerrin James.
It's hard to think of Pat White and Tomlinson without college, without the NFL career. Okay, that that's the kicker. In college, LT was a bad man, but he wasn't nearly as good as Reggie in college. If they never played it down of NFL, nobody would think LaDainian over Reggie.
Yeah, agreed.
As a pro, yeah, unbelievable.
Michael
blew him away.
So Tim Crosby said, Pat White very underrated. The Jackson 81 said, "Have you watched the People's Court?" No, but I like to think of this show as a People's Court. So there you go. Obi Matt said, Manti Te'o had 99 problems, but a girl ain't one. Man, he's quick with these one-liners, man. Quick. And then Michael said, Pat White, how many glasses have you had, Gary?
Yeah, no.
This is my only one.
Agree.
But listen to what I'm saying here. Pat White.
He can be underrated and
revolutionized,
still not be worthy of this.
He revolutionized offense in college football. That offense that West Virginia ran under Rich Rodriguez is what everybody is running now. And I understand not everybody. I get the point. But a large portion of teams are now running that type of system. Pat White was ridiculous.
Rodriguez revolutionized it.
Yes, but Pat
was
White
the tool
ran
in
it.
which he used.
That's
Pat White didn't invent anything. He
didn't invent it, but he ran it to perfection. Like, he was unbelievable. I like Pat White.
He was unbelievable in one game.
Well,
the guy's ass.
I'll tell you what lost him that game. That was McAfee. Pat McAfee missed a bunch of field goals in that game early in the game.
Voodoo lost him that game. Voodoo. My boys from LSU showed up.
Matt said Pat ran that spread and was amazing, but you predicted how to shut him down. Like, yeah, you could find ways to shut him down. You got a good defense. You can obviously shut him down. I guess, we're not even talking about Donovan McNabb here. McNabb at Syracuse was unreal.
They were great. They were great. None of the rest of them are close. The separation between Jameis and Reggie is a massive chasm.
You're probably right. Which one would we go with? Probably Jameis.
I would take Jameis because I'm going to take the quarterback.
I think the quarterback has more to do with winning. I would never in
my life want Jameis Winston on a football team of mine ever. But if I'm arguing this situation, I got to take my hate away from him and be honest.
These dudes are trying to kill me, man. Michael Jordan said Pat White, product of a system. You still got to be good enough to run the system.
System quarterback. Bam. Right there.
Are we calling De'Aaron King a system quarterback? I mean, we'll see what he does at Miami. I mean,
do we know?
I don't know.
We'll find out.
I swear to God. I think we'd have to go Jameis. I think we'd have to go Jameis on that.
Reggie Bush is right. Until you said Jameis's name, Reggie Bush was the answer, and it was pretty easily. I just think because Jameis is an idiot, it's so easy to overlook what he did and how good he was. I mean, the guy didn't lose a game for 2 years.
Yeah.
That's incredible. His only loss was a blowout loss, but yeah, it was in a playoff.
Now, Matt said Winston just always seemed like he would fold up if he had to consistently play top teams. He played really good teams in the ACC.
No, those Florida State teams actually had to play good teams.
Yeah, they played.
Winston was really good back then too. Okay, yeah. They didn't just show up. All right, they were big
pretty
boys.
Good.
Miami was better back then.
Yeah,
Florida was good then. Like they had to play teams.
Yeah, they played some pretty good teams in 2013 and 2014. It wasn't, his game-winning drive against Auburn in the national championship game, that was all Jameis. So, I'm with you, but, it is what it is.
It's hard. It's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to hold your nose and say Jameis is the best for this. But in my opinion, I just think what he did was bigger than Reggie. It just was.
Matt said, this is a W. We got to eat that W. Who wants to eat this W?
God, nobody wants to eat that W, Jameis. Makes me want to throw up in my mouth.
McKinnon said, if Jameis is on your team, Chris, you might get some free crab legs. So
I don't want them.
I don't want free crab legs.
Man had the crab legs all up and down his dick. Who wants that? You will go home and cook crab legs that you had all over your nutsack?
No, I'm good on that.
Who the hell's eating them?
Matt said Auburn didn't deserve to be there, and then Michael said Bush affected the game on special teams as well. Auburn deserved to win that. I mean, they were
absolutely deserved to be there.
100%.
I wish they'd have won that game so bad.
I don't.
Want that game.
Not me. Yeah, I was rooting for Florida State the whole time. I don't even like Florida State. but I like them more than Auburn. Is what it is. Let's move on. Let's talk about our NFL draft reaction. This is the NFC South today, and we got 4 teams to hit. We got the Tampa Bay Bucks, we got the New Orleans Saints, we got the Carolina Panthers, and we got the Atlanta Falcons. I guess any comments that you want to make before we jump into them? Is there anything we need to hit beforehand?
No.
No?
Is there a reason?
No. I was just curious. I'm trying to buy time because I'm trying to pull up the stupid website so I can look at the. It is what it is. NFC South. All right, here we go. The Tampa Bay Bucks. They didn't have a ton of picks, but that's okay. They need their win total right now is sitting at 8.5 at Vegas. So, okay, a lot of people high on them. They've got low Super Bowl odds, all that kind of stuff. However, their win total is still sitting at 8.5. So it's not crazy. Let's roll through their needs. They needed, and this is for this coming season. I swear to God, we have had people killing us in the YouTube comments on each one of these talking about, and it was mostly Rams fans that are, y'all talk about needs, but, we're looking into the future 2-3 years in these picks and blah, blah, whatever. Their needs for this season were cornerback, offensive line, and defensive line. Okay? Now, here's what the Bucs ended up getting, and we'll just roll through them, and then you and I can talk about them. Round 1, they got tackle Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa, who Chris believes is the best tackle in this draft, and I think I would agree with him. Round 2, they got safety Antoine Winfield Jr. out of Minnesota. He is pretty awesome. I'll say that. I think that was a steal at 45. Number 76, round 3, they got running back Keyshawn Vaughn out of Vanderbilt. Round 5, they got wide receiver Tyler Johnson out of Minnesota. Round 6, Khalil Davis out of Nebraska. And then they had 2 picks in round 7. They got Chappelle Russell out of Temple, linebacker. And then they got running back Raymond Calais out of Louisiana. That's one of Billy Napier's kids, and all them boys can play. So, they traded up one spot with the 49ers to make sure that they got Tristan Wirfs, and we can talk about whether or not it was worth trading up one spot or not. I think in order to ensure that the 49ers don't trade with anybody else, that you can go up and get the best tackle in this draft, I think it was a good draft. I think it was a good pick.
I don't think they gave up much. They didn't give up hardly anything.
They gave up number 14 and number 117 to the 49ers in exchange for number 13 and number 245. So they got that last 7th-round pick in exchange for basically a 4th-round pick.
Yeah.
And I think that's so okay.
Bad. And here's the thing. The reason you do that is because you have good enough intel to know that somebody else is trading up to take that pick.
Yeah. And now, obviously, there was no news about it, but I think, you make that trade just to ensure that nobody else does it.
There was no news about it, but this was also the least news insider draft we've ever had.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, nobody knew what was going on.
Just because it wasn't reported, the teams we know it didn't happen with were, the teams where there was a writer that was on the Zoom with these guys going through it and had the information. But that was only 3 teams had that.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. 2nd round, Antoine Winfield. I think this is a steal. I thought that he was a 1st-round talent. There's all the stuff. Our Northwestern boys over at Westlake Pirates, this was one of the kids that was involved in the sexual assault scandal that ended up costing Tracy Claeys his job, basically, because he sided with the kids over the school and blah, 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 all that kind of mess. All that stuff aside, talent, Antoine Winfield was a 1st-round talent. He is part of what made Minnesota so good last year. Their defense, while that wasn't what everybody talked about the wide receivers, whatever, he was outstanding in coverage. He was outstanding in zone. This is what Pro Football Focus said about him. Former Minnesota safety with NFL bloodlines. He's an uber instinctive player who also checked boxes at the combine with his 4.45 second 40-yard dash. Mike Renner said, I think he can do things that you want from a versatile modern safety. You can tell when a safety just sees things at a different level, and it shows up again and again on Winfield's tape this past season. The injury history is a concern, but I am more than willing to take a shot on him at 45. Everything that I'm saying here. Tim Crosby jumped in on Facebook, by the way, and I'm guessing that this is his team here. He said Ed Reedish, and he's giving the crossed fingers here. But he said the Bucs got the steal of the draft with Tyler Johnson. Wirf and Winfield will produce early. Vaughn is the most underrated pick in the draft. Okay, let's kind of tackle these as we go. Keyshawn Vaughn out of Vanderbilt, incredible speed, incredible running back, played on an awful team, but you were able to see what he was capable of. I think they kind of got a steal here. He is a poor man's Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and he may be just as good. He just wasn't on as good of a team.
That's right. Yeah, we just don't know what he did, in that kind of system at Vanderbilt. Bruce Arians, Byron Leftwich, Tom Brady, they're going to get him the ball. 100%. And if this guy can catch the ball out of the backfield, that is James White is what Tom Brady wants. He really doesn't even have to have the speed that he has, but he's got to be able to get open, catch the ball out of the backfield. It's just the most important thing.
Yeah. Pro Football Focus said Vaughn is a solid zone runner with plus speed and burst. He'll get what's blocked and then a little extra. He ranked 7th among all running backs, and he was 146th on PFF's final big board. So if you look at their final big board, 146, and they took him at 76, you can say that they reached here. I don't think this was a reach. This was a need, and this is a kid that fit exactly what they were wanting to do in Tampa Bay. So I'm all over that.
We knew they were coming out of this with a running back. I don't know that there was a better running back that was taken behind him. And there's the thing is, if they had a pick earlier, would they have taken a better running back? Maybe. But that wasn't available to them. And I don't know that there was a better guy behind him.
No, and you and I both preach about the safety position in the NFL. You needed a safety. You needed some secondary help. You go get Antoine Winfield. I think that's a good pick. I think Keyshawn Vaughn, very valuable pick there in the third round. In round 5, they got wide receiver Tyler Johnson out of Minnesota. The kid can play. He can absolutely play. He is something else.
Is he the real tall receiver they had? I don't. They had a couple of receivers there at Minnesota that were really good. One of those dudes was super long. I'm trying to.
Hold on, I'm looking up his combine stuff right quick. Let's see. Tyler Johnson. It doesn't have it. Hold on. It's pulling up.
Did you know that there was a Tyler Johnson that plays for the Tampa Bay Lightning? So just Tyler Johnson, Tampa Bay is not good.
I did not. I looked up Tyler Johnson, Minnesota. He is 6'1".
What the hell is that?
He's 6'1", 206 pounds.
So 6'1's not okay. So he's not the super tall guy I was thinking of. Okay,
no, he's sure not. But that's okay. So, Link, come on. You want to come over here? Here, come here. We got family stuff going on today. Good gracious. So I don't see a combine as far as speed. I don't see, anything crazy. I do know this. That Minnesota offense was unreal last year. PJ Fleck is able to – that's right. It is football, buddy. Lincoln's about to go take pictures. So that's what's going on for anybody that's curious what's happening here. They're about to leave. So there's no speed. There's no – do you want down? Here, go get mommy. Go get mommy. There's no speed on him, but I know he's fast. Let's see. Play strength, reminiscent of A.J. Brown. Let's see. He had a whole lot of school records at Minnesota. I mean, this is all NFL.com stuff. I think Tyler Johnson was a steal in round 5. I think it was absolutely a steal. Defensive lineman Khalil Davis out of Nebraska. We'll see. These are all flyers. And then Chappelle Russell, linebacker out of Temple, and running back Raymond Calais out of Louisiana to wrap it up. I'll tell you this. Let's go ahead and talk about whether we like or dislike. I like the Bucs draft. I mean, you could tell they have a plan. They have an idea. We trust Bruce Arians and that staff to be able to put together a competitive team. I think this was I think this was a really good draft. I like what they did.
Yeah, I do too. No, I think that team is a pretty complete team. I mean, they're really good at all levels of the game.
I mean, this is part building for the future and building for right now. I mean,
That's
you
right.
got guys that can contribute immediately. Tristan Wirfs is going to be a day one starter.
Walk in the door and play day one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. And same with Tristan Wirfs. I think he will start game one. So is what it, Tim said. Come on down to Tampa this year. We may go see Tim and we may go see TJ here in a little while. I mean, we'll see. It all depends on the COVID, I guess you could say. Let's jump off of them. The next team on the docket, the New Orleans Saints. And I'm kind of excited about this one. 10.5 is their win total. 2 full games over the Tampa Bay Bucks. They needed wide receiver help, linebacker help, and defensive line help. I don't know that they really got any of that with this class. This whole thing, I mean, they traded away basically their entire draft. Tim, by the way, said 2 miles from the stadium tailgate party. Hey, I'm down. I like Tampa. I ain't got a problem with Tampa. Busch Gardens, buddy. Let's do this. Hey, Tim, hit me up on the DMs. Let's plan this. We got to go see Michael in Denver, and we got to go to Tampa. So, hopefully, Chris, you're okay with that. We got a lot of traveling to do this year. The Saints took 4 draft picks this year. They took Cesar Ruiz out of Michigan in round 1, offensive lineman. They took linebacker Zach Vaughn out of Wisconsin in the 3rd round, which was kind of a steal because there were some people talking about him going early 2nd. They got him at 74. Round 3, they traded basically their entire draft to trade up and get tight end Adam Troutman out of Dayton, who nobody knows anything about. If anybody says that they watched Adam Troutman play a full game of football, you are straight line through your teeth right now. He's got all the measurables. He looks good. If you look at his highlights, sure, why not? But I don't know. And then in round 7, now this has become a big NFL thing. Have you seen all the stories that have come out about this? About Tommy Stevens? So apparently the Panthers had talked about, signing or the Saints thought that the Panthers had been talking to Tommy Stevens, that they were going to sign him as an undrafted free agent. So the Saints traded back into the 7th round. They took Tommy Stevens, quarterback out of Mississippi State, in the 7th round, and they took him in hopes of trading him to Carolina. Blah, blah. Basically, they took him because somebody in their division wanted him and had already worked out some kind of a deal as an undrafted free agent before the draft was done. So then the Saints traded in and just took him anyway, even if they didn't really want him. Because, the Saints have already got Jameis and Taysom Hill and Drew Brees on the roster.
No, nobody's going to do that either. Like, you're keeping another team from getting them, but you're not. At some point in time, you've got too many quarterbacks on the roster. So now you have 4 quarterbacks on a roster that you can't carry.
Right.
All right. If you waste a roster spot and as soon as you designate him for the practice squad, anybody can go get him.
Yeah.
Right. So you're either going to carry 4 quarterbacks and give up a roster spot of the 53-man. That's tough to do, brother.
Oh yeah.
Or,
Ben on YouTube said they now have 3.5 quarterbacks. So
yeah. But I think this is a thing that I don't like at all. This is a team that's drafted really well the last couple of years, and they've built their team in a pretty impressive way. So it's hard to question them. But I just disagree with worrying about what your other teams in your division are doing. You make your team better and don't play these games. Don't dick around. Take who you need to take, because what are you going to get back for him? You're not going to trade him in the division. That's just not going to happen. And they're not going to give you any real asset for a guy that's unproven. There's a reason that he's an undrafted free agent. They want to see what he looks like when they work him out and, whatever. So I just disagree with that.
Michael said Carolina will eventually get him if they want. They're not going to keep him on the roster. And then Matt said, does Hill really count as a quarterback? Ben responded to him and said, half a quarterback. Yeah, at Taysom Hill, I don't know that they're actually going to list him.
But you're
as
using a 53-man roster spot for him every Sunday. That's the
reason this is such a big deal is because it is against league policy to make deals with draftees before the draft is over. That's why the Saints took him. The whole thing's goofy. Like, obviously, we know that teams make deals with players before the draft is done. Otherwise, they wouldn't have contracts done immediately after the draft.
As soon as, these guys know if you get. But here's the thing: telling a kid if you don't get drafted, there's nothing wrong with that.
I don't think there is.
Having a deal in place, but if you don't get drafted, tells them we like you, but we're not going to draft you.
We like you, but we may not have enough draft picks.
Yeah. Well, that just says they're not going to draft them. If you're working out an undrafted deal with them, you're not drafting that kid.
That's a very good point. So the Saints, 4 picks. Ruiz, let's talk about the ones that they did get. Let's leave Tommy.
First 2 picks I like. The other 2 I don't know anything about. Well, the quarterback pick I know. That was a dumb pick.
Yeah, Tommy Stevens, he dealt with a ton of injuries.
I also don't think Tommy Stevens is projecting to be a good quarterback in the NFL either.
No, I don't think so. I think he might be a Taysom Hill kind of guy. Michael said, I don't get the Caesar pick. With Breeze having a couple years left, you'd think they'd get immediate help. I think they feel like Ruiz could be immediate help.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. I think, here's the thing. The measurables, you don't see it with the measurables, but if you watch the tape of Michigan, Cesar Ruiz is a beast, and he comes to work on every single play, even if he's not that pretty, 6'5", 340-pound, whatever guy. He is still a stud, and he just part of me really likes that underdog card. They got a lot of underdog kind of guys on this team, and he kind of fits into that mold. I think I kind of like that pick. The linebacker, Zach Vaughn, out of Wisconsin, that's an incredible value pick. Incredible value. To get him in the 3rd round is ridiculous. I think that was a really good pick. So those, I think, are great. The tight end, Adam Troutman, I don't know the first thing about him. But if they liked him enough to trade the rest of their draft to go up and get him, I'm a trust Sean Payton and that bunch to make sure that this is the right guy.
I heard some logic about Sean Payton trading all those because they were all 6th and 7th round draft picks that they traded. It was a bunch of them, but he didn't give up anything that wasn't a 6th or a 7th round pick. Okay, yeah. So the logic behind that is Sean Payton said we're always going to be able to pick up another 6th round pick or a 7th round pick because the Vikings aren't going to be able to sign all those guys. And all these other teams are going to drop guys that they drafted too. And then we can
the
just
Jags had, 15 picks?
Yeah.
They're not going to sign them all.
So they're saying that the concept of if there's a guy available that you want and all you're doing is trading large volumes of late round picks and there's nobody late that you've got your eye on that you want to take a flyer on, just deal the picks, get the dude you want, because all of these other teams are going to cut guys.
Oh, yeah.
And when they do, you don't have to cut anybody. You'll actually need 2 or 3 more guys, and you'll be able to go pick those guys up for nothing.
It's a very smart way of looking at it. Ben said, this is a good question. Why is everyone getting labeled as Taysom Hill? First it was Jalen, now it's Tommy Stevens. Look, I don't know that Taysom Hill brought a whole lot to the table anyway.
My question is this, not why is he – I'm asking a different question than this. Not why is everyone getting labeled as Taysom Hill. Why do we think he's that valuable for a guy? You're going to pull your quarterback, the most important player in all of football, off the field to run a gadget play with this other guy that does something different. Yes, he makes defenses worry and practice and spend time working on things that they don't normally have to work on. You know what? I would rather, if you told me, Chris, you got to play the Saints, but don't worry, 5 plays in that game, they're going to pull Drew Brees off of it. Now, because of that, we got to spend time trying to stop this other kid, and here's the things that he does differently. I would be happy with that because those are 5 plays that Drew Brees can't make a big play.
Yeah. 100%.
I just don't understand that the math. doesn't make sense. Bill Belichick used to have a rule. Now, he obviously changed it a couple of years ago, but he used to have a rule. They used to run a lot of trick plays where they ran, the flea flickers, all stuff where the end arounds, receiver or a running back would throw the football or whatever, and none of them worked very well. And finally, Bill said, listen, we have Tom fucking Brady. Nobody throws the football but Tom. That's my rule, and I'm done. And
now he did have Julian throw 5 touchdown passes.
That's what I'm saying. They changed that only for Julian.
But even still, they kept Tom on the field.
One trick play. But, you're not even running trick plays with Taysom. You don't even have the element of disguise because, Breeze comes off. So we know exactly what you're doing.
I got to get an answer on this. Michael jumped in and said, another system quarterback. Now, are you talking about Breeze or are you talking about Taysom Hill? Like, surely you ain't talking about Breeze. Breeze is unbelievable. Like, I will say this. He kind of helped invent the spread with Joe Tiller at Purdue, but, it is what it is. Taysom Hill's contract, by the way, that he just signed, signing bonus, he gets a guaranteed $4 million this year, $4 million next year, guaranteed. His base salary, $10.7 million in 2021, only $841,000 this year. His dead cap space for this season is $16 million. Next year it is, cap hit this season $4.8 million. Next year it is $16.159 million. Is he worth $16 million to your cap next year?
You do realize Andy Dalton just signed for $3 million, right?
I'm just like,
if he becomes the starter, he gets $7 million.
I don't get it. Michael's talking about Hill.
This is a team that's really bad at cap space, by the way. If you look at the Saints every year, they just keep living on borrowed time. I keep thinking that eventually this is a team that's going to go from 12, 13 wins, competing for a Super Bowl, to falling off a cliff because at some point in time, the cap comes for all of us. It's like the government and taxes, baby. One day you're going to have to pay. They're going to pay, and they can't keep signing these contracts the way they are and living the way they do, but they do. I've been saying that for 6-7 years.
I know.
One day they're going to have to let everybody go.
It's really been the last 4 years. Like 4 years straight, we've been trying to figure out how in the world are they fielding a competitive team. And right now, they've got a great roster right now.
Well, I'm going to tell you how they have drafted better than anybody in the. I do believe over the last 4 years, they have hit more on their draft picks and busted less on their draft picks than anybody else.
So do we trust their draft? Let's go ahead and talk about whether or not we like their draft. Cesar Ruiz, Zach Vaughn, and Adam Troutman. We're going to keep Tommy Stevens off of it.
But everything else I know about this team, I'm going to say no. That doesn't mean that I'm right, but I don't like this at all. I love Braun, and
Yeah, Zach Vaughn, Cesar. I think I like Cesar Ruiz. I think I like this draft. I mean, it's only 3 picks.
It's hard to say. I mean,
they don't have as many bites at the apple.
You got to take into effect all those guys they gave up to get the 4 picks.
Yeah, Ben jumped in.
And I hate one of their picks. I think they completely wasted. I think they just threw away.
Yeah, that's Ben said. Why would the Saints draft a Taysom Hill when they literally have the Taysom Hill?
Taysom Hill, and they've got him locked up for at least 2 years, and they can't get rid of him. They can't move him.
Yeah, but I mean, the dead cap is. I mean, it's absurd. Like even if you were to cut him, like
so
God, it
out of the
so much.
4 picks, one we don't know anything about, and the other one we openly dislike. How on earth can I say I like that? And one I don't know anything about, you gave up like 7 picks to get that guy.
But you admitted like it was all guys who would take flyers.
I'll tell you this.
I would rather take flyers.
Philosophy. That's his philosophy. I would rather have control over the flyers I'm taking, because if you get the Donovan Peoples-Jones, if you get the Kenny Hill or Hamlin or whatever, the guy from Ohio State, if you hit on those guys, then you're not cutting them. Those guys aren't getting cut. You're getting guys that are getting cut from other teams. I would rather have control over the guys I bring in and let me do the cutting.
That's I'm with you. Okay, I can understand.
This dude better turn into Gronk. He better turn into Jimmy Graham, or he ain't worth it.
Let me, before we close off with the Saints, let me look and see what his measurables were. Adam Troutman out of Dayton. He is 6'5". Let's see. He's a kind of an older guy from what I understand. I think he's a fifth-year senior. Redshirt senior. 6'5", 255 pounds. Okay. You know, he ran a 4.8 40-yard dash, 18 bench press, 34.5 vertical jump, 114 broad jump, blah, blah, blah. 3-cone drill, 6.78. It's a pretty good time. 20-yard shuffle, or 20-yard shuttle,
Underwear Olympian. This is what you take late. This is not what you give up your whole late for one guy.
I mean, if he turns out, then the draft is a win. If he didn't, then okay. Maui looks good there, man. Very majestic looking.
Getting big.
He is getting big. Good gracious.
He's like, not real happy that I'm not giving him attention.
No, I can tell. I can understand.
We're going too long.
Lincoln was the same way. I understand. So we
He's
are
just quiet. This one don't make any noise.
No, you got that right. The other one just yells all the time. Good Lord. Let's move in. Let's talk about the next one. The Carolina Panthers. Their win total for this season with new coach Matt Rule, new offensive coordinator Joe Brady, 6 is their win total. That is the lowest in the NFC South. They needed defensive line help, safety help, and cornerback help. We understand that is for this season. Let's go ahead and discuss exactly what they drafted this year. And they are the first team in quite some time to take nothing but defensive players in the draft. Now, they had 7 picks. That's it. They had 2 second-rounders, no third-rounders, but then they had a pick in the 1st and the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. So let's just kind of run them down right quick, and then we'll see what happens. They got defensive lineman Derek Brown out of Auburn. They got edge rusher Yetur Gross-Matos out of Penn State. They got safety Jeremy Chin out of Southern Illinois. They got cornerback Troy Pride Jr. out of Notre Dame. Safety Kenny Robinson out of West Virginia. Defensive lineman Bravion Roy out of Baylor, and then cornerback Stanley Thomas Oliver out of Florida International. All defensive guys. Derek Brown, I will say, we were fans of this pick early on, and even today.
I think we're going to look back in 3 years or 5 years, he could be the best defensive player to come out of this draft.
Yeah. I think defensive linemen have a chance to make a bigger impact on the game early in their career than almost any other position, you know? Like safety might be a close second to that because I think safety can kind of change the way that the game is played. But, I mean, you got a defensive lineman, you got an edge rusher in Yetur Gross-Matos at number 38 in the second round out of Penn State who, you know, some people were questionable about his measurables and blah, blah, blah. Look, the guy produced at Penn State. Like, we'll see what happens at the NFL level, but I got faith in him. And then safety Jeremy Chin, I mean, it comes out a long line of NFL, you know, legacy. Let's see, what is Pro Football Focus? Yetur Gross-Matos, while his grade did improve every year of his career at Penn State, Gross-Matos never had high-end production at the collegiate level. He finished the 2019 season ranked 32nd among qualifying edge defenders in overall grade. That was 84.7. There's an awkwardness in the way Gross-Matos rushes the passer that is tough to ignore. His lack of dominance, despite dominant tools, gives us pause. And then they said they traded picks number 69 and 148 to move up to 64 to draft former SIU safety Jeremy Chin. Chin has peak athletic tools for the safety position, but he's far more athlete than football player at this point. Carolina has that defined box role, so he'd be the best box safety in that defense. If you're banking on him being a box safety, they had some typos in this. I'm not sure he's necessarily your guy. I don't think he brings it to the table. I was hesitant on him because of the competition he played at Southern Illinois, and that tentativeness at the position, a guy that plays below his athletic traits, is worrisome. I look at this differently than PFF does. That is all that Matt Rule has done for years is draft athletes and teach them to play the way that he wants them to play. So if you got a fantastic athlete, you teach him to do what you want him to do. This is the Bill Belichick way of going about it. Let's see. Hold on. I got to get caught up on the quotes. Hold on. Or not quotes, sorry, the chat. Tim Crosby said, how does crab leg get better in New Orleans? we've already been over the Jameis stuff. We'll talk about Jameis again before the season, I promise. McKinnon said, I don't know how no one tried picking up Nick Coe from Auburn in the draft. I believe he signed as an undrafted free agent, but damn, I think he's good to be undrafted. There were a lot of really good undrafted players. This was a very deep draft, okay? Yep. Michael said, favorite pick was Jeremy Chin, Atwater's nephew, wanted him to wear number 27 for Denver. Yeah, when you got other NFL teams that wanted the player, you drafted the right guy. Like, he's an athlete. He might not have shown a whole lot at Southern Illinois, but, I mean, would anybody have watched? Would anybody have seen what he did at Southern? I mean, he's an athlete. Like, he's period an athlete. And then Tim said, you both loved Rule in college. I hope he sucks in the pros. But that's coming from a Bucs fan. McKinnon said, I love the Panthers draft. I really do. They don't have any major needs on offense, and they took exactly what they wanted and needed. Hard to beat that kind of draft. Yeah, they took all defensive guys. They needed a ton of help on defense. I mean, if you look at their needs, defensive line, safety, and cornerback, they needed defense. So they went and they drafted defense. That's the smart way to go about it. And what I was saying about Rule, Tim, the reason why we loved Matt Rule in college is he could take athletes. He found guys that fit a certain specific measurable that he wanted, and he brought them in, and then he developed them. He taught them to play the position that he wanted them to play and that they would be most successful at. And I think he's going to be able to do the same thing at Carolina. Jeremy Chin in the third round, he is an incredible athlete. He may not have shown a whole lot at the safety position at Southern Illinois, but as a box safety, he could be incredible. And I think you can do it. Now, he may not be the first year, obviously, but he's a third-round pick. Who gives a shit right now? Like, you're developing him over the years. I think this is a fantastic draft by the Carolina Panthers. I like what they did here. I mean, obviously, you got some flyers that you took, late in this, around 5, 6, 7. But you got guys. You got athletes that you can teach to play the way that you want them to play. And I think that's what Bill Belichick does, right?
Yep. Yeah, no, he made it clear, if you watch the draft, he said, we addressed everything on offense in free agency, which means we had to use draft capital on defense. And he made it clear, we got to hit on some of these guys. It's not 100%. It's not as secure as signing a free agent who you've seen be proven at it, but it doesn't cost you nearly as much. And so, it's a smart move. He needed defense. He went all defense, and they're going to bring him in, and they're going to work him out, and they're going to see what they can do.
I trust this coaching staff to be able to develop the players that they've got. Period. And, obviously, we'll see. It's a different level when you get to the NFL as opposed to in college football. But in college, you're taking kids from, high school and teaching them to be men at the same time that you're trying to teach them to be, football players. It's a little bit different, but I like what they did. I like this. I like this draft. Like, that's the fun part about not having to, put a letter grade on it. I can just tell you if I liked it or not. Tim jumps in with the thumbs up. Thumbs up, Tim. We appreciate that. I like this. 50%, one way or the other. I'm going over 50%. I like the Panthers draft, even if it was all defense players.
Here's the thing I like about going all defense in today's world in the draft. I wonder, do they think there's market inefficiencies? I fully believe that the draft, offensive players do get overdrafted because they're flashy and they've got the names that everybody wants and needs. There's no reason that Brown should have been sitting there. There's just not. But quarterbacks are too valuable. Offensive linemen in this draft are too, it's not a sexy position, and he should have been taken second or third in this draft, and that's just the truth.
Yeah.
But I think you find more market inefficiencies drafting defensive players than you do offensive players because less defensive players get drafted.
Yeah, that's 100% true. 100% true. Last up, we've got the Atlanta Falcons. 7.5 wins is their current Vegas total. They needed cornerback, linebacker, and edge rusher. So basically, they needed defensive help, and that's 100% true. They got the weapons on offense. They got pieces. McKinnon already jumped in on Facebook. Hard to believe there's a division in which Matt Ryan is the worst QB1 in the division. definitely excited to see how the season goes for the division as a whole. Look, I think it's between Matt Ryan and Teddy.
Teddy's not proven yet. Let's be real careful before you give it up to Teddy. Now, I kind of hope he is the worst because I'm not a fan. But.
You're not a fan of the Falcons. I like the Falcons, though. I don't have a problem with the Falcons. Now, I will gladly make fun of them just the way that I will everybody else, but that's okay.
Incredibly boring football team.
I think they're exciting, but I think it's exciting in a different kind of way.
Exciting about them
because I think they can beat anybody, and I think they can get housed by anybody. And that's what makes them exciting.
But all their games are boring. All their games are terrible.
And they were last year for sure.
Every Falcon game you watch is just a snooze fest. Matt Ryan is a very good quarterback. Matt Ryan is really boring.
Yeah, Matty Ice hadn't really lived up to the name a whole lot, other than the Super Bowl season. But, I mean, he had massive yards last year. It just, defense was awful. Tim said, can they bring Cam back into backup Teddy? No, Carolina will not be bringing Cam Newton back. McKinnon, outside of Davidson, I'm not super happy with the Falcons draft. He's a damn stud. Terrell was a bad pick that I'm hoping I'm just dead wrong on. They're touting him like the next coming of corners, but I don't drink that much Kool-Aid. Michael said Atlanta got pass rush help after struggling the last couple of years, and they took a pick for Chris. Yeah, they did. We'll see. Carlos Gomez jumps in on YouTube. Good to see you, Carlos. I had A.J. Terrell as a reach for the Falcons. I had Jalen Johnson, Gladney, and Trevon Diggs as better prospects. 100%.
Yeah, and I'm also the guy that says, why the hell are all these cornerbacks going so early? There was elite level safety there, elite level linebacker play there.
And there were better quarterbacks.
And better players at the position you took, and I'm just leery of that position. So
let's roll through what they took. Round one, they had 6 total picks. Round 1, A.J. Terrell, cornerback out of Clemson. Round 2, defensive lineman Marlon Davidson, who we both love, out of Auburn. Round 3, center Matt Hennessy out of Temple, who is a beast, even if you hadn't watched him a whole lot. You and I both watched a lot of Temple games last year. That guy can change the game, or at least he did for the Owls last year.
Last 2-3 years, yeah.
Round 4, linebacker Mikal Walker out of Fresno State. Round 4, safety Jalen Hawkins out of Cal. Round 7, punter Sterling Hoffreiter out of Syracuse. And that is what Michael was talking about. Taking a punter with a pick. What are you doing? Whatever. Look, first round, A.J. Terrell, cornerback out of Clemson. There were better cornerbacks, we feel like, that were on the board. Now, we can be absolutely wrong, and we have no problem admitting when we are wrong. If A.J. Terrell comes in and lights up the league, then that's fine. But at 16, that was a bit of a reach, and there is absolutely zero way that he was higher on their horizontal board than CeeDee Lamb was, who went in the next pick. And I understand you already got wide receivers. You already got your offense is set. But as far as value goes, if you are a smart franchise, you take the best player in that position. CeeDee Lamb was a top 10 pick that fell to 17. You had the 16th pick. You had the option to go get him. Imagine an offense where you've got Calvin Ridley. Go ahead.
Trade that pick to somebody who's willing to give you a fortune for CeeDee Lamb.
Because you can get A.J. Terrell later.
Yep.
I don't understand it. Either way. Round 2, they got Marlon Davidson, defensive lineman out of Auburn. We were both big on those two guys out of Auburn.
Those two boys are going to be massive NFL stars.
And
they
the
just
fact,
are.
The fact that you get Davidson at 47, I mean, that I'll give him that.
I don't know why he fell. I thought it was. I love Brown. Brown is the elite of the two of them, but I don't know that he's that much better than Davidson.
Day 2, this is what PFF said about Marlon Davidson. He said Davidson falls closer to the tweener side of the spectrum or defensive lineman than the versatile side. His flexibility is impressive for a bigger dude, but he doesn't have the burst to threaten NFL tackles. Bulking up and kicking inside looks like his best bet. He's
probably going to play inside, but I kind of assumed that all along.
He is largely a projection, considering he didn't play a ton of reps along the interior at Auburn. That is just
crap. I don't care about all that. Well, he didn't play that in college.
He said, but
will he do good at it? You know what he's really good at? Taking the guy in front of him, pushing him on the ground, and making a tackle.
They said he has all the tools to offer a high-end production at the position in the NFL. Michael said 100% right, Chris. Safety, if elite, can cover and play the run. They can play 3 positions. I think Simmons had a quote about that prior to the draft, 100%. McKinnon, who replied to Tim said Atlanta always gets one solid pick. The rest are usually awful. McKinnon said, amen to that. Been a Falcons fan since 04. Nothing but rarely enjoy the draft. Let's talk about that third-round pick as well right quick. Hennessy, the center out of Temple, who we just talked about, can play on the move. That's a coveted skill at the center position today. We worry about his high-cut, slight build holding up at center against power. He ranked 4th among centers and 103rd among all players on PFF's big board. Yeah, I mean, you might have reached a little bit, but look, that was a position of need, and I think he's going to play. I like Hennessy. I understand when you talk about measurables and all that kind of crap. I get it. But I also look at the players playing football. And if they are good football players, I trust that they will be able to translate, for the most part, to the NFL. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Do you feel the same way?
No, I look at – so for offensive linemen, if you're not going to be one of the elite guys and you're looking at 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th-round guys, what I care about is how many snaps did you play in college? How many years were you a starter in college? Because if you're a 3-year starter in college, I got to assume that I can figure out something for you to do in the NFL.
Yeah. And
I just do, because you're good enough to take the beating, take the coaching, and keep your starting job for long periods of time. I just got to figure it out. Now, I'm very skeptical of guys that are smaller schools, don't compete with a lot of other people, come in, have one really good season, and don't have all the size measurables. Those are all the red flags. Now, I don't give a shit. I ain't touching that kid.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. Rounds 4 through 7, they got 2 4th-rounders and 1 7th-rounder. We're not going to touch on the punter. The kid at Syracuse had a lot of chances to punt this year. We'll just say that. So, obviously, he can look good on a highlight reel. But in the 4th round, they took linebacker Mikal Walker out of Fresno State, and they took safety Jalen Hawkins out of Cal. Obviously, big fans of Cal's defense. What Justin Wilcox did there was ridiculous. And the safeties that he had were able to play. They were good. They're good players. If you can get that kid at 134, 100%. And then Mikal Walker out of Fresno State, yeah, Tedford did not win with offense the last 2 seasons. Their defense at Fresno State was borderline ridiculous. Like, I could not – if there was one thing that you would have told me about Jeff Tedford coming back to college football, that would be it. It's just the most ridiculous thing you could possibly say is Jeff Tedford is going to win with defense for 2 straight years. That's it. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Jeff Tedford's defense was unbelievable. I just, McKinnon said, almost never get to enjoy one of my college guys play for one of my 2 pro teams. I think they just killed the Davidson pick. I know I already said it, but damn, I'm excited for him to rise up. Yeah, if you're an Atlanta Falcons fan, be excited about Davidson. Be excited about Hennessy even. AJ Terrell, hope for the best. Just hope for the best. Like, we think he reached. But I mean, who's to say? Like, 16 just seemed way too early. And we weren't the only ones that believed that.
No, there's a lot of people that thought that. And I just
it's just crazy.
Much. I'm just leery. I'm leery of some of those Clemson defensive kids because they played virtual high school teams for 80% of their college career, maybe 90% of the college career.
Now, they looked great against Tua and that Alabama offense in 2018, but against Joe Burrow and that bunch.
But they wasn't even just Joe Burrow. Ohio State cut them up first half of the game.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't score touchdowns on them, but
they moved the football, though. They had a ton of yards.
Yeah, they had a ton of yards, but they didn't score. I mean, Ohio State only had 23 points for the entire game. I mean, that's on them, Like, we can go rehash that again if we need to, but Ohio State cost themselves the ball game.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about A.J. Terrell being able to stop a receiver.
No, he really wasn't able to.
And when he went up against good receivers, he didn't stop them.
Yeah.
He looked great against, the crap coming out of Florida State, Miami's garbage offense. Sure.
Yeah. By the way,
like stars.
Go ahead and give applause. Restream, let us know. We've received 100 messages today on the Restream chat. Thank you guys, obviously, for always jumping in here. Fantastic stuff, as always. I'm going to say that I like the Falcons draft. Now, it's not my favorite draft, But I like what they did other than that first-round pick.
I didn't like it because I didn't love anything other than their second-round pick.
I think, the fourth-round picks with the kid out of Fresno State and Cal, I like those. Obviously, you were going defense with a lot of this. You drafted a cornerback, you drafted a defensive lineman, you drafted a linebacker, you drafted safety, and you hope for the best, right? And these are all kids that I believe can end up being good NFL players. I like it. I don't love it, but I like it. So, we'll see. We'll see. With that said, who do you think ended up winning this draft out of this division?
I think the Bucs did.
I think you're probably right. Yeah.
I think they got the best. Right. Oh, never mind. They didn't have the best player. I think Brown was the best player in the draft.
I think they got the most high-end talent.
I do too. I think the players they took are going to just I think they took less flyers. I think they took guys that are going to produce and are going to be productive NFL players.
Yeah.
And I think some of these guys we're going to see get cut in the next year or two.
Michael jumped in. He said, just want to say thanks, fellas. You give us the platform to chat and have these conversations. I definitely enjoy it and appreciate it. McKinnon said, I'm glad one of us liked it as a Falcons fan. So, yeah, I'm with you. I understand where you're coming from. I don't think it was, like I say this, I don't think it was terrible. Like, it's.
Well, no. At some point in time, somebody's got to be the loser. If all four teams did good, then
I will.
The worst.
So
who do you think won the draft?
I think the Bucs won the draft.
You know what? They didn't lose the draft. They didn't lose. The Saints lost the draft.
I think the Saints. Yeah, I think the Saints lost.
Saints 100% lost the draft. They took 4 picks. They gave up a lot of picks to get a pick that we don't know anything about. I don't know anything about.
And the first 2 picks
they took a wasted pick completely just to piss somebody else off. That's stupid.
Yeah,
petty bullshit never wins.
I don't. I like some of the players that how about this? Instead of liking, I understand what the Saints were trying to do in this draft. Aside from that 7th round pick, their first 3 picks in the draft was Zach Vaughn and Cesar Ruiz and Adam Troutman. I understand where they were going. I don't necessarily like it. I think they lost this NFC South draft, and I think the Bucs won it. Like I think the Bucs are set up better long term. I think they got players that are going to be around longer. So, and then the Falcons and the Panthers, they're right there in the middle. We'll just see what happens. So, who knows?
I would say the Panthers did better next after the Bucs, but they got the single best player out of the draft.
If I had to rank them, I would go Bucs, Panthers, Falcons, and then Saints. That's the way I do.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. So,
I'm good with it. All right. Is there anything else that we need to hit on today?
Nope, that's it. Let's get out of here.
That is it. All right, guys, this was a longer one than usual. Again, we appreciate all of you jumping in on the chat. This has been fantastic. You guys are wonderful. Share the show out with your buddies. Tell your friends about it. Leave a nice comment and a nice review on the podcast. Make sure you are subscribed. As always, take care of yourself, take care of each other,